This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Detroit is the greatest!
Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back to Neal in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! He makes it a goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Thank you for downloading another episode on the Motor City Sports Rant. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Jason will be calling in shortly. Oh my goodness. I said last week the chances of enjoying the Lions Cardinals were going to be slim. And everybody that tuned in, give yourself credit because the game itself, holy cow, offenses that couldn't move the football, a field that was absolutely disgusting. I can't believe the NFL would allow the Arizona Cardinals to put a field like that together so that when players went out there, they had to change their cleats. Several of the Detroit Lions were not even able to finish the game, and it was sloppy, messy, and it was really two football teams that were at the low end of the spectrum. And I watched the game. I suffered through it. Now, thank goodness it started at 4:25. I was able to watch some quality football, a classic ending over there in Miami in which, Lions fans can relate. The New England Patriots totally messed up at the end, giving the Miami Dolphins the victory. Kenyon Drake, after a couple laterals, was able to scurry into the end zone, making Rob Gronkowski look like an idiot. You had great games all the way around. And so, obviously I'm a fan of the Lions. You know what? Before the game, I told people, look, I'm going to put it on the DVR. Give me a reason to watch it. Give me something other than being a crazy Lions fan. Not a lot to get excited about. I mean, you saw the contest. You saw the matchup. A lot of people beforehand were even debating what was the value for the Lions to even go there and win the game. And obviously, I'm on the side of, look, I never really want the Lions to lose, but sometimes losing allows you to, meet some goals that you're trying to get. And I understand those that rebut and are upset and will tweet us on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. And they'll say, look, how are you going to get these guys to tank? What is the purpose of going out there and losing? Well, I mean, the simplest way to put it is you slipped because of the victory. The Lions slipped from number 5 all the way down to number 10. And that means the quality of talent that you're drafting is not going to be as good at 10 as it would be at number 3 or 4. So obviously, a lot of people who voted on our poll, because I asked, what was your reaction to the Lions winning? Was it dumb or was it okay? A lot of fans, upwards of 70% of those that voted, said that it was dumb for the Lions to win the game. And I look at it and I say, yeah, it stinks a little bit in that if you continue to lose, then your schedule next year could be a little bit easier, meaning that the way the schedule lines up is you play the team's equivalent in other divisions in terms of ranking. So if you finish last and you finish 4th, you're going to play a 4th place schedule next year, which makes it easier to get more wins. And if you draft higher, you can have a higher chance of drafting very well. But the arguments, I understand, nobody has real confidence that the Lions are going to hit on a lot of picks anyway. And so they say, well, you know what, other organizations draft low and they do well. The Lions have missed on a bunch of people anyway, so what does it really matter? And that's the fault of the Lions organization. That's what they've done to the fans, is that they've tainted their perception of what a general manager should do. Nobody has real faith, and neither do I. I mean, if you ask me, what's the percentage chance that Bob Quinn in the first round in 2019 is going to pick a productive player? I think the chances are more likely you get a Ziggy Ansah who's going to be a bust than you do a productive player. Going into it, it's 50-50 anyway. And coming into the Lions, which has a really weird culture, it's tough to be positive after a game like that. But if you just want to focus in on the game, a lot of mistakes, a lot of punts, a lot of players going down, not finishing. And one of the key players that actually made the game, took the flight, was out there, and many people want to see and evaluate was Ezekiel Ansah. Unfortunately, another occurrence of a shoulder problem, and that sight of him walking off could be the last time you see Ansah donning a Detroit Lions uniform. And a lot of people are frustrated, upset, because $17.5 million was allocated by Bob Quinn and the Lions for Ezekiel Ansah, despite his repeated injuries, despite the fact that since 2015 he hasn't been healthy. Adam, again, was really concerned. $17.5 million to franchise Ansah was a big risk, a big chance, and you didn't get nowhere near the level of return, and it's a shame. And I joked around on Twitter saying that's what you get for franchising a guy that's 37 years old. And on paper, quote unquote, it says that Ezekiel Ansah is 29 years old. But the way in which he broke down might lead some to question, dude, how old is this cat? Why did he break down so fast? Why didn't Bob Quinn realize that this guy couldn't be on the field? That's what Bob Quinn's supposed to do. I mean, us, Detroit Sports Podcast, had doubts. We were spending the money elsewhere. We were wondering, what are you actually going to get out of Ezekiel Ansah? And, of course, it came true. And some people say it was a business decision. Some people are questioning him. It's just unfortunate in that, since his epic breakout year, he's just been all downhill. A guy like that is just an epitome of what's wrong with the organization. You allocate money to a guy with the hopes that he can contribute, and look what you get. You get a guy that's limping off the field. Week in, week out, you got to look to see the injury report, whether or not he's going to actually play in the game. And then when he's actually there, his contribution was inconsistent at best. And it's frustrating. And one of the most frustrating aspects of watching a game like that is it's not NFL caliber football. That contest between the Lions and the Cardinals, how could people, if you're not crazy like us who broadcast or fanatics, how could you sit and watch that game? I mean, you had quarterbacks that obviously you would say, Matthew Stafford has the advantage. The Lions, as an organization, have the better quarterback. But if I were to tell you going into that game that the Lions would have and Stafford would have 101 yards passing, you would laugh at me. I would even laugh at that and say, 100 yards? Are you kidding me? That's what happened. With a guy like Kenny Galladay, he should be slotted in, week out for 100 yards right off the bat. And you got Theo Riddick, who's a threat. You got other weapons in the tight ends and Tololo and Roberts and things like that. But unfortunately, the scheme is so stripped down. They've decided that ball control, running it, despite the fact that even by the end of the third quarter, they were only around 80 yards rushing total. But they stick with it. And unfortunately, the frustrating aspect of a scheme like that is the Lions are making a concerted effort to play that way, that you've taken this quarterback, Matthew Stafford, and you've said, look, we're not going to have massive yards per attempt. You're just going to have to run this offense. And it's unfortunate because it's going to get JBC fired, which is really crazy for both Stafford and JBC. If Matt Patricia comes to you and says, make this the most conservative offense, this is how we're going to win, is through defense and by ball control and things like that. If you realize that it doesn't work, you're not scoring points, it doesn't behoove the Lions or Stafford to try and execute that. I mean, I guess you could have thought you could have rolled up into Arizona and won the game 10-0, and you only gave up 3 points to Arizona. You got a defensive touchdown. It's really crazy in the manner in which the Lions run that offense. And I just can't believe Stafford is willing to execute that. And many people are observing and noticing that maybe he's not willing anymore or is not authorized to audible anymore. But the offense is garbage. It's not entertaining. And then you look at the other side, you look at Arizona, and holy cow, Wilkes is doing a terrible job over there. No passion, a lot of rookies. It's not a great thing going on over there in Arizona. And to start, the field is terrible. Players falling left and right. The field was cut up. That's a god-awful field, and it's a national embarrassment that the Cardinals are able to put a product like that on the field and not have a field that's really safe for these players. And so the Lions go and they handle their business in a game that dragged, and there were a lot of back and forth, punts and, not really great plays and mistakes, and great for the Lions, great for Darius Slay. Kudos to him. earning his first touchdown in the NFL, pick six. Good for him. But in the end, you look at that contest, and by halftime, I was telling people, man, I'm going to fall asleep. This sucks. What kind of football is this? When you get a chance to watch high-quality football, and then you turn into a game like that, oh, my God, I can't believe that, two teams could put on a performance like that. But, if you're a fan of the Lions and you see them earn their fifth win, great. They're 5-8. They got 3 games left. They go on the road this weekend to Buffalo, which hopefully is going to be a good contest. But again, going into it, I'm hoping that they lose. I'm hoping that, that the next 3 games will result in losses. Hopefully nobody, that's a marquee player like Kenny Galladay or Matthew Stafford gets hurt. And you just hope that they just kind of get to the end of the season and really finish with losses. And you hope that when Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia get together and they decide what's going to happen next, that they emphasize defense, that they continue on this path of trying to improve the defensive line, linebacker, secondary. And if this scheme can work, maybe that's what can happen is you have a way stripped down version of Matthew Stafford. You're going to have a new offensive system, and you hope that you can find that healthy balance of taking chances and putting on some entertainment because, I don't know, could I watch 16 games of that, a defensive grind? Oh, my goodness. I don't know. That's a question I'll ask you guys. Could you sit by and watch a defensive battle week in, week out, a la the Baltimore Ravens? It's just weird because it doesn't seem to be the fit that you have with Matthew Stafford. You would think that they would air it out. You'd think that you would take more deep chances with Kenny Galladay. It's just amazing that that's the game plan. And you wonder, do the coaches really look at Stafford and view him as a game manager? I'm just so confused. I'm really confused and befuddled by this organization because everybody right now is pointing the finger at Stafford. They realize that JBC is going to be let go. When you look at it, you just want a couple things for the Lions. You want to see that the plan that is going to be put in place has meaning. It makes sense. Right now, you look at it and you go, wow, almost half the team is going to be turned over next year. And you got to put a lot of faith in the draft. You got to put a lot of faith in the money that's available to the Lions to go out and get quality guys. It just feels like sitting here today that whoever the Lions go out and select in free agency is not going to be good enough. They're just going to come in here, take a boatload of money, take the Lions' money, the Fords' money, and just walk off and not do much. And then when the draft comes, we're all going to be panicking that the person that the Lions pick is going to suck and that the person, drafted 1 or 2 places after is going to be productive. I mean, look, Tease Tabor is going to be cut. A'Shawn Robinson's had a tumultuous season. You look at Jared Davis, and he seems to only want to perform against Arizona. And you look at it and you go, man, with the draft picks, with free agency, it's going to take a lot for the Lions to turn it around. And just right now, I'm just not confident. And it stinks sitting here being a fan of a 5-8 football team with a lot of negatives, a lot of situations in which you watch a game and every other play is stopped because, Deshaun Hand, Ziggy Ansah, for a time there, Darius Slay, people were getting hurt left and right in a game, and it just doesn't lend to quality football, and it's just very frustrating. That's what it's like. That's the life of a Lions fan, and, they walked away with the victory, really, in the end, meaningless to me, probably meaningless to a lot of people, and we'll try to make sense of it with Jason when he calls in. I definitely want to thank the show sponsors that make this possible. Got to give credit to the Motor City Pawnbrokers and to Podomatic. Definitely, if you're in the Metro Detroit area, go check out Motor City Pawnbrokers, the one-stop shop for quality brand name, new, and pre-owned merchandise. Go check out MotorCityPawnbrokers.com, and you can check out the locations, hours of operation, and you can check out a fine establishment, Motor City Pawnbrokers. And definitely, if you're starting a brand new podcast, check out Podomatic.com. We've uploaded over 1,100 podcasts to one host site. And when people say, check out my podcast anywhere that podcasts are found, we upload our podcast that we record every single day to Podomatic, and then it gets filtered out to all the great podcast platforms. So if you're looking to start a brand new podcast and you want to reach the level of success as a Detroit Sports Podcast Network, definitely check out Podomatic.com. All right, on the line, Jason Jarvie. Have a chance now to connect with him. How's the start to your week been, buddy?
Oh, it's just busy. We're at the job. It's a final end of year push, just like we're seeing with all of our sports teams.
Yeah, real interesting stuff. I know during the game I had asked friends, are you guys watching? And a lot of people were like, no, passively watching. I know asking you barely had it on. Adam had to watch it a little bit for work too, but it's interesting this time of year with the Detroit Lions, the level of interest that people have. How did you take in the Lions-Arizona game?
I want to say that I actually watched the game, but I was driving, and I didn't even put it on the radio because this game had such little interest for me. The Arizona Cardinals are an awful team, and like what our offense is doing these past couple weeks, it's not interesting. So with it being the 4:00 game, it kind of loses. And just to check to see how the Lions are doing, and I see 10-0. And I realized at that point that I made the right decision because it would have been a complete waste of my time.
Yeah, 100%. I passively watched it. I definitely, when I looked at the Lions game, everyone kind of knew going into it wasn't going to be that great. So real challenging. Right now, going into that game, I know everybody's talking about it, whether the Lions should tank, what's the value of them winning these games. And I know it's hard for professional athletes to go out there with the notion of, hey, don't try your best and things like that. But do you think the Lions could have sat Stafford, could have sat Darius Slay, and maybe just conceded the fact that, look, if we lose this game, we could be drafting 4th. Now that they won the game, they're drafting 10th. And if they continue to win, they might end up, in the 2019 draft, drafting around 12th to 13th. So I understand both sides of the argument. I waffle back and forth. But in your situation, when you look at the whole notion of tanking and how the Lions should have approached the Arizona game, were you okay that they won the game, that they competed a little bit? Or do you say, you know what, in retrospect, the best thing for the Lions to do really is to just get the best draft pick possible?
I mean, the way that I look at it, I have a hard time just going out there, not putting your best team out there and at least competing. And because I do think that there is value in going out there and coming together as a team, because next year, if we truly are looking to next year, it's not going to be, just a clean slate where we have new people and try this all over again. There's going to be some turnover, but there's also going to be a lot of the same guys that we see. And I don't think everybody on this team not everybody's garbage. So, I think there is value in getting experience for some younger players and maybe getting some confidence for players who, need to, get a win under their belt. And that's the way that I see this game. It's not a statement win. It's nothing special. But it's nice to see Darius Slay get the pick 6. I could care less about Zach Zenner getting a touchdown. That guy can go back to being a brain surgeon or whatever.
Man, Jason, hardcore. No respect for Zach Zenner. That drive, he had almost 40 yards by himself.
Do it an entire year. The dude can't do it this entire year. He's not an NFL running back. At best, he's and this is at best, he's a second-string running back. And more than likely, he is a third or fourth-string running back. That's at best for that guy. He is not a starter.
No, the funny thing about that is, Jason, a lot of guys padded their stats against Arizona. Jared Davis put up some tackles and some hits. You had the pick 6 from Darius Slay. You had the opportunity for some film out there for some players to at least have some positives. And that's what I think, too, is that it's hard for an organization to go out there and just intentionally lose. And it's just for us to talk about as fans, wishing that the Lions could execute properly and get the highest draft pick. And I think the people that make the argument against tanking will say, look, the Lions have had high draft picks. They've wasted them, and they have low faith that anybody that's running the front office with the Lions can really do anything anyway. So they say, look, just draft where you're going to draft and just try and go out there and find talent that's going to be successful. But then you look at it from the other side. I mean, you had Ezekiel Ansah be drafted 5th, and his career with the Lions is going to end up being reviewed as a bust. And Bob Quinn has as many busts in free agency and the draft as he does hits. So it's super hard to just put all your eggs in the basket of the draft because it's so hard to determine how much success a player that you draft is going to actually have that you just go, you know what, find the best fit for your team and try and go out there and put together the right team. It's just hard in the draft, but that's how the Lions are going to be built. I mean, they're going to have a lot of money in free agency to spend. They're going to have a lot of draft picks, and you just hope that more often than not, of the 9 draft picks that you potentially have, 5 or 6 of them can contribute, but it's just so hard when most people believe it's just going to be 2 or 3 at most.
Right, and I mean, realistically, those draft picks, it doesn't really matter. We're going to go as far as Matthew Stafford is going to take us, as Kerryon Johnson is going to take us, or as our, whoever is going to step up and be our main playmaker on defense is going to take us. It would be nice to go out and get somebody like a Saquon Barkley. By the way, that guy is an absolute beast. I so wish we would have traded up to get him. He would have been so worth it. But unless we're going to go out and make a big splash and try to get one of those, a true franchise guy, how much are we really going to get from the draft?
Well, you look at it and you go, Stafford was delivered at number 1. Calvin Johnson, who put up a lot of production, was drafted at number 2. You had Barry Sanders, I think, at number 3. And you give yourself more of a chance to get a talented individual, a lesser chance that it's going to be a bust if you draft higher. And that's the argument for tanking, is that if you draft in the top 4 spots, especially in this draft with a lot of quality defensive ends, you have an opportunity to improve your team a lot. But it's just unfortunate that people do remember the Lions' history in that everybody believes, and the notion is that whoever's drafted by the Lions is going to suck, and whoever's then drafted next, a pick or 2 after, is going to be successful. It's just partly due to the culture of the organization. It's just due to the fact that when a talented individual comes here, there's just not enough of a great winning culture to uplift anybody. It's kind of a similar situation to Amari Cooper. He's out there in Oakland. He's out there in Oakland, and he's, doing stuff, but not really living up to potential. And he's not happy. The losing takes over. You don't feel good. And all of a sudden, an organization comes calling, and they make the sacrifice, and they bring you over. And he's now balling out. He's making Dak Prescott look good. The Dallas Cowboys are winning right back in the playoff chase. And he comes out after that 3-touchdown performance versus the Eagles, and he said, "When I played football as a kid, this is what I dreamed of, the big games, the big moments, and going from the Oakland Raiders to Dallas was just what he needed." And I think for a lot of Detroit Lions, it's just kind of a stop-through that I bet you, of the 53-man roster, I bet you 48 really don't believe that the Lions will ever win. Honestly, they don't believe that the organization can do what it takes from top to bottom in order to put together a winner. And I just think that a lot of these guys are doing it for a paycheck and doing it to be on a roster, but do they collectively, are they willing to just go all out and do what it takes to win? I don't think so. I just think that most people are kind of hoping that maybe another organization will take a chance on them and they can move through because, I think when a guy like Golden Tate leaves, he probably texts Matthew like, dude, it's way better somewhere else. It's way better. They're not going to go through coaches left and right. They're going to do things a lot more professionally, and it's just unfortunate that the way the Lions are collectively, just from top to bottom, isn't right. I mean, look at the very nature of what Bob Quinn did when he hired Matt Patricia. He didn't do his due diligence. And I know some people will say, well, some of the records of Patricia were not made available. You got to do your job. You got to make sure it's available. Whereas the first thing that's talked about when Patricia's hired is, scandal. He's a guy that potentially was, doing some nefarious things and had allegations of sexual abuse. That's one of the first headlines with Matt Patricia. And so that's how that tenure started. And you just look at the Lions and you go, okay, it's 2018, another year where They're not going to be in the playoffs. They're not going to win the division. And most people right now, when they look at the Lions, have very little faith going forward. I mean, any talk now of Stafford, I mean, if you looked online, you realize that Stafford was nominated for the Walter Payton Award. He's the Lions winner, and now he's nominated, right? So the Lions announce it, right? Within 4 comments on Twitter, the first comments were, never won a playoff game. That's the only thing he can win. He probably will lose that. A lot of negativity with the Lions, and it's just not going to change until we see progress. And a year where you lose 8 to 10 games is just not that. It's just not there right now.
Yeah, and really all we're left with is hoping that they can somehow right their ship. But again, it's really all you can do. That's all you can do at this point, because, I mean, are they going to keep Bob Quinn? I mean, because if they let go of Bob Quinn, then we got to hope that, whoever they bring in after that is going to be able to right the ship, or whoever the next coach is, he's going to be the right coach. The Detroit Lions fan base is essentially only built on hope. And, I mean, unfortunately, we are the people who just sit around and take the punishment, and it's not right, but it's just the way it is.
Yeah, it's just the way it is. Did you get a chance to watch any other football? I mean, the Miami Miracle, Patrick Mahomes bringing his team back. There was a lot of good football on Sunday.
I did. I watched the Miami Miracle, and I mean, it was an interesting play. You know what it made me think of, though? It made me think of Jim Caldwell.
Pass back and forth kind of thing.
I know. You thought they were expecting the pass back and forth.
And so everybody that saw that can say, wow, even a coach of the ilk of Bill Belichick made a mistake. He had Rob Gronkowski out there when he really shouldn't have, and really surprising that play actually took place, especially when everybody knew that Tannehill could not launch the ball 70 yards, and Gronkowski slipped all over the place. Whew! Oh, my goodness. And you look at what's going on with Patrick Mahomes. You see what's going on around the league. Really fascinating stuff.
Really surprised with Chicago being able to hold L.A. to what they did.
Oh,
I mean, they pretty much shut down Todd Gurley.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up.
In fantasy.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up, too, because I was watching that game. And so watching the Lions over the course of 2018, you recognize and you read some things in the paper that this is kind of a game plan in which this could be what the Lions' future looks like if they build a supreme defense. And obviously, it's not going to be to that degree of offensive futility, but do you think you could watch and be invested? And I'm a guy that likes defense, but in terms of how the offense is so poor, would you be in favor if the Lions are a defensive team and you look at the Bears game, they won 15-6 and they're dominant and they're not doing a whole heck of a lot offensively in the last couple weeks. Would you be okay with the Lions kind of playing this way where you say, okay, Stafford, you're going to take your chances. We're not going to air it out because everybody assumes that the Lions are going to get an OC and just start airing it out. I kind of see more of the same, but just executing better. I feel like what the Lions are realistically going to do is go get an offensive coordinator that's going to call plays a little bit more with a little bit more pizzazz than JBC, but not a lot more. They're going to pound the ball with Kerryon Johnson. They're going to get a tight end that can be a safety valve for Stafford. They're going to really run a constricted offense and then really hammer home a defensive scheme that will allow the Lions to be in it. Would you be in favor of games around the neighborhood of like 20-16, 20-17, where the Lions play close games, but they are really focused on defense? Because I asked myself that if they get wins, I'm okay with it. But entertainment-wise, man, it's just really hard to be entertained by games like that. But at this point in time, anything at all, if they can get a W any way possible, I'll take it.
So I'd be in favor of it only if our defense was absolutely dominant, and knowing that every drive that the offense goes out there, that our defense is just going to shut you down. That's the only way that I'm comfortable watching those games. What I don't want to see is that we have a really good defense, but we have lapses or we have a game where we just don't get it, and that's what kills me, is being on the edge and seeing really good play at sometimes and then having just horrible play at other times. That's what kills me. That's what I can't stand. So if they're going to go out there and invest and absolutely be the defense that can shut down every single offense in the NFL, I will gladly accept that, and I will take victories 9-0, 6-0, if that means that we're shutting down every single offense. I know it's a tall task, and I don't really see that happening, unfortunately. But that would be the only way that I really accept that.
Real quickly, how'd your fantasy team do? I was eliminated. I lost 110-96. The player that blew it up for my opponent was Juju Smith-Schuster. He got 25 points or so. Fantasy, I was okay. I had some guys perform well, but not enough. I had 96 points, and just unfortunately that I ran into a higher seed, and they outperformed me. So I'm eliminated. I entered the playoffs at 7-6. I was the 6th seed, but I'm out. Done.
Yeah, I got in the playoffs. I won, I think, like 4 of the last 5 games to be able to make it in, and both of our teams just really underperformed. Like I said, I had if Brandon Cooks and Kirk Cousins could have at least performed at a normal rate, I might have gotten the victory. But both of our teams just kind of stunk it up this week, and my team's just stunk it up a little bit more.
Oh, so you're out too in the big leagues?
Yeah,
you're out. You and I are out of the fantasy playoffs. Jason, thank you so much.
I was out a long time ago in my main league.
Gotcha.
I literally 5 of my top 4 picks were all injured. I had Devontae Freeman and LaShawn McCoy, and the only bright spot I had was Saquon Barkley, who I ended up trading to essentially mortgage the future, because I ended up getting a 1st-round pick and a 3rd-round pick in next year's fantasy draft. So I'll be the owner of 2 1st- and 3rd-round picks in that draft.
Thank you so much, Jason, for dialing in. Fun times ahead. I look forward to catching up with you in studio next week. You can follow Jason on Twitter at JarvyTheKing. You can message the network anytime at Detroit Podcast. If you have any fantasy football questions, feel free, lob them over to us. Thank you so much for your time, buddy. Enjoy the rest of the week.
You too. Later, man.
Later, Jason.
Peace.
Thank you so much for downloading the latest edition of the Motor City Sports Rant. Check out all our content, DetroitSportsPodcast.com.
Okay, nice, idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.